Alright guys, welcome back to Milk and Cookies Total War. I'm Mini Pride, and today we are doing our second sponsored video for Total War Arena, a strategy game in partnership with Creative Assembly, and now under Wargaming's wing. If you want to give the game a shot, click the link in the description below, and your Total War Arena career will be kicked off with 7 days of premium and 500 gold. But today, I'll be showing off some Tier 4 Cavalry gameplay with Arminius, and Tier 4 Infantry gameplay with Germanicus. And unlike the first video, where we just did an overview of the basics, we're going to cover what makes these two commanders unique real quick, then jump right into the action. So Arminius was the mastermind behind the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, which saw 3 Roman legions utterly obliterated in one of the most decisive defeats in ancient history. He was a lieutenant of the Roman auxiliaries, but his loyalties lay in Germania. So he purposely fed the Romans false information, which led them into the teeth of a destructive ambush. And this is represented quite well in game, where Arminius balances the ambush and guerrilla tactics that made him famous, with lightning quick charges and a frenzy mechanic, where units are overcome with bloodlust before or during melee, increasing their weapon damage and their melee attack, but lowering their defense. Infiltration is one of the more unique skills in the game, and it basically disguises your units so that the enemy thinks your troops are friendly. You can pull off some pretty crazy shenanigans there, especially when the battle lines break down and you get into the later stages of the game, because that's when people have had their attention focused elsewhere and you can slip in behind for some sneaky backdoor action. And even if someone is paying real close attention, in a game like this, like Total War Arena, sometimes all it takes is a split second or that extra step for you to close the gap and seal the deal. So that hesitation, where they try to figure out if you're a friend or foe, is sometimes all that's required. So let's jump into some Tier 4 Cavalry gameplay now with the Brigands on Alpes Graia. Now, this map is based on the most likely route Hannibal took through the Alps, but today, it's going to serve as the final resting place of our enemies. I've said it before, I love playing all cav. I've always been a heavy cavalry guy in Total War, and although Brigands are not incredible cavalry by any means, they can definitely get the job done, especially because it's open season on archers, and they have no problem smashing them into the dirt. Gonna run them down like the dogs they are. I'm not even sure that's an insult, by the way. Dogs are literally the best thing on the planet. I had an Australian Shepherd for 12 years, best money I ever spent. And I feel bad when I have to kill him in arena too, because I've seen a ton of War Dog players over the last few days. But looking at the map here, I would not consider it great for cavalry. It's really choke pointy, without a ton of room to maneuver, but I like a challenge, so let's see what we can do with it. And our job here is pretty simple. Provide vision for the team, run down enemy skirmishers and artillery, and strike unprepared units in the rear or flank if we see a good opportunity. Mostly against enemy cavalry, because backcharging infantry can get you killed pretty easily with a lot of Tier 4 cav. Some of our friendly cavalry have managed to tie down those artillery pieces which were not defended particularly well. We're going to move up, try to get a bit more scouting done. But basically, I think one thing that you should really learn, especially if you're going to play cav, is patience. Aggressiveness can definitely pay off for you. Especially as you get higher up in the tiers. Cavalry can start just absolutely eviscerating entire units with a single charge. Brigands can't really do that. They don't have that kind of DPS. They don't have that kind of killing power. So patience is pretty important, because what will happen is you'll see some archers that are undefended, but there are 10 players on the enemy team, right? And it's not hard for them to quickly pull behind hoplites or swords. And unlike some of the other Total War games, you can't send cav into swords and expect them to do particularly well. You're going to get stomped in any kind of grinded out fight. So you kind of have to pick your engagements really wisely, which means sit back, wait for those battle lines to break down, wait for enemy units to engage, and then you can go in. And that's what we're going to do here. Enemy got a good charge into my friendly cavalry, and I'm like, I'm going to go help him out. Wait till his cavalry is tied down, then we can get the charges in from the flank and the rear, and we're going to get a really nice engagement off right at the start of this battle, completely surround the cavalry. Now, I have not been using it recently, but I have come to understand that you can actually pop Frenzy before you charge in, and that extra weapon damage and the extra melee attack will actually buff you on the charge as well. I believe that charge works the same in this game as it does in other Total Wars, in that a charge bonus will be additive and kind of multiplicative with your melee attack bonus. They kind of synergize very well together. So if you raise that melee attack before you charge in, you're going to do more damage, and I haven't really been doing that. I've been popping Frenzy once I'm in melee, but if someone can confirm if popping Frenzy beforehand is better, please let me know. I imagine that it might very well be, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Either way, we completely surrounded that cavalry, took it off the field, and that was a pretty good way to start the game here. So still want to be patient though. We see hoplites, we see a lot of swords moving up. And again, on this choke pointy map on Alpes Grea, we can't just go in and flank around behind the enemy army because there's too many very narrow choke points to go through. But the enemy has not done a very good job of protecting their range units, and we see an opportunity here to pop momentum, pop our frenzy, get in and absolutely charge through, pancake all these range units. We're going to do the same to those archers over there, get another nice charge off, and this is what cavalry is meant to do in Total War Arena. Hunt down the high value targets in the back lines, and our opponents have not done a very good job of protecting this stuff, which they could have done. Like one sword or one hoplite would have been more than enough. One pike unit would have been more than enough to plug that entire gap. They didn't have it there because the battle lines broke down. There had already been some fighting going on, and later you get, and sometimes early too, I mean, if people aren't on the same page, you get those kind of gaps, and you can exploit that pretty hard when you got the mobility that Arminius does. But if you've never seen this game before, you've probably already seen some pretty substantial, oh, nice charge there. That's really fun. There are some pretty substantial differences in combat from Total War Arena to some of the other Total Wars. So one of them is that cavalry charging in and of itself is actually an active ability that has a 30-second cooldown. So you can't charge whenever you want. You don't just right-click or double right-click to attack an enemy. You need to make sure that you actually have the charge off cooldown before you do it, or you really aren't going to do very much damage whatsoever. Cavalry in this game cannot stick around in prolonged melee very easily. They do have a couple abilities like the Hoof Stomp that will do damage in prolonged melee. Those are abilities you're supposed to cycle in when they come off cooldown every 7 seconds or so, but that's not going to do a whole lot of damage. You want to get that full run up, and you want to make sure you get the charge active off before you do it, or you're just not going to do a whole lot of damage. And after killing all those range units, I can now easily go for the cap, and this is not going to be a particularly hard-fought battle. One of the issues I've actually been running into, I've tried to get a bunch of gameplay over the last few days, and I would much rather be using the replay system right now, because I can go in and talk more about tactics and strategy. Right now, this is live gameplay. But the problem with that is replays are not working right now, so I'm hoping that's something the Total War Arena team is working on solving, because over the last week or so, as I've tried to get gameplay, the replay system just has not worked at all. None of them actually load. But that was a really quick one. Probably not representative of the majority of the battles I've played, but just get in there, surround the cavalry, finish those off, hunt down the range units, and then go for the cap, and you can get a lot of points that way. So that was a pretty easy Arminius game. I've had a lot more hard-fought ones, but again, couldn't access those replays, which was unfortunate. But let's shift over and take a look at some Germanicus gameplay, where I'll be rocking with 3 Hastati, which are tier 4 infantry. You know them very well if you played Rome 2, and we're going to be going a little bit more heavy metal in that one. If Arminius was the boogeyman, Germanicus was the one you sent to kill the boogeyman. 2 years after the disaster of the Teutoburg Forest, the young Roman general crossed the Rhine with more than 50,000 men, determined to avenge the loss of Varus and his legions. His wars in Germania would see him clash with Arminius on more than one occasion, and the Roman campaigns there saw to the deaths of untold numbers of tribesmen as he won battle after battle. Their rivalry was a fierce one, but ultimately, Germanicus accomplished what he set out to do, recovering 2 of the 3 lost eagle standards from the Teutoburg and draining Germania of their will to fight. His focus on legionary combat is reflected in Total War Arena as a heavy infantry expert, based on powerful charges and effective use of the Tetsudo to deflect enemy fire. At tier 5, he unlocks Vengeance, a boost to damage output that can quickly mulch through enemies stuck in a melee grind. We're going to take a look at a gameplay on Oasis, and we're rocking with the famous Hastati Pastrami of Triplex Achilles fame. Our job here is to be the meat of the army, the front line, the anchor that ties down enemies and grinds them into dust, while our allies' cav circles in behind and archers reap their terrible toll from range. It's not the most glorious job. You're always going to take casualties when you do it, but someone has to do it, and it's a reliable way to get points. So what we're going to do here is going to peel them volley off, then charge in from the flank, and start tying down those big blobs of Roman infantry in the center, while our archers and our allies do what they can to help support. More Roman infantry coming in, and we're getting some good jab volleys in, we're getting some good archer volleys in, and we got some spears coming in from the flank as well. A lot of enemies pouring through the breach in Oasis right now. They're trying to push through the capture point, which is not what we're going to let them do. We're going to make a lot of those Roman infantry run away here, Maybe get a couple more peel and volleys in as they try to escape. And as they turn those big ol' Scudums in the opposite direction, say goodnight to your missile block chance and enjoy some pincushion butt, courtesy of your friendly neighborhood archer. There's a lot of pressure being put on our back lines though. Got some packs of war dogs on the prowl, and they can hurt pretty bad. Not like the doggos from the other historical Total Wars. They can hurt real bad off the charge. You can see some decent damage being done from them actually when they charged into my Roman infantry there. Counter charge didn't do a whole lot to them, but they've been depleted already from some earlier engagements, and now with the Toxitai firing in from the flank, they should not be long for this world. They're going to want to retreat, or they're going to die pretty horribly. Getting stuck in melee here. They do have more survivability than you would expect, but in prolonged fight with infantry, they're still not going to do particularly well. So we're going to chase them off here. And I will say, if you want to get settled in arena and learn the basics of positioning, Roman infantry is definitely the way to go, I feel like. They're probably the beginner class more than anything. I think barbarians are a bit too glass cannon-y to really recommend for anyone when they're first starting out. Roman infantry is just reliable. They're sturdy. They do a lot of damage when you're in prolonged fights. They're not very micro-intensive to play, and you can just pretty much always rely on that killing power and their tankiness. So, and you have the versatility of having Tetsudo to protect you against archer fire and javelin fire and that kind of thing. So I feel like they're definitely the way to go. Again, not very micro-intensive, but that can be fun in and of itself. If you're kind of struggling, oh my god, that charge. The impact from that charge bonus is so nice. Looks a little bit goofy, but it'll do a lot of damage. Those infantry charges with Germanicus, that's what he's all about. Getting those real nice charges off and obliterating a lot of jab troops in melee. That'll work very nicely. But yeah, I think Germanicus is probably one of, if not the go-to commanders that you want to try out if you're trying out Arena for the first time. 3 infantry, just not very hard to micro. Alright, so what we're going to do here, as we see a lot of red pushing through the overhang at Oasis, they're going to want to go for the capture point, right? We don't want to take an engagement right now. You can see that 2 of my infantry are down past half HP. One of mine's close to full, but the infantry that he has are all almost full HP. There's no reason to take that engagement right here. What I want to do is just pull back and rethink this whole situation, right? I mean, that's how you want to handle any engagement, right? Like, if you see something where you're like, I'm probably not going to win that unless your team absolutely needs you to hold the line there, don't go in. I would just be feeding them points. So what I'm going to do instead is pull back. I know that a lot of my team is over on the other side of the map. They might have time to cap right here, right? And there's going to be probably a base race here. And this is one of the things that I think is so exciting about Arena, is that you can have situations like this where you have both teams going for a different capture point and a lot of room for clutch plays that can completely swing the outcome of the battle. And then, of course, the fact that the maps themselves are so conducive to those kind of battles. There's a lot of strategy that goes on a map like this when you've got so many different choke points, different areas you can fight over. It makes for a really fun battle. So, and when you got 10v10, all real players, that also makes for some really nice ones as well. But you can see that a lot of red is now going for the capture point right now, and they are at 70% in terms of the cap right now. And I just need to charge in and tie down as much as I can. And they have so much in the cap right now that even though I've engaged them in melee, it hasn't reset the cap. But with the help of my ally, sending in some cavalry there, he's going to get a good charge in from the flank and completely reset their cap. And I'm going to get a rear charge off on their infantry after I throw a peel and volley to do a little bit more damage there. And nice rear charge with Germanicus, another cavalry charge coming in. And we have completely set the cap. You can see the blue going all the way up. We're filling that bar. We're capping on the other side of the field. We stop them from capping here, and we are going to win the day. Now, if I'd engaged a little bit earlier with those 3 full-strength infantry units, might not have been able to reset the cap. In fact, I probably would not have. We would not have had enough stuff back at the capture point, and we would have lost. So, again, got to think of it from a tactical perspective, right? If I'm not going to win this engagement outside the capture point, wait until I can do some real good inside of it, make sure they can't cap, and it saved us the game. So both those matches were with random pubs, but the real fun on Total War Arena is when you grab a couple of friends and you work together, and when those strategies you employ result in the complete annihilation of an enemy team, it feels really, really good. Although it's certainly a very different experience than your typical Total War game, I still think it has a lot to offer, especially if you're into the multiplayer scene like me. Game is far from perfect, it's still an open beta, but if you want to give it a shot, check that link down below. Now's a good time to get into it. Thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Indie Pride, signing out for now.